All right, let's dive right into this massive update from Google and unpack what the transition from NotebookLM to Gemini Notebook actually means for your day-to-day workflow. Whenever a tool we absolutely rely on undergoes a major rebrand, it naturally sets off some alarm bells. But in this explainer, we're going to completely look past the flashy headlines to see what's really shifting under the hood and how you can adopt without missing a single beat.
So back on July 16th, 2026, Google officially dropped the news about this change. Now, I totally get it. A name change can trigger instant panic, especially for anyone who uses this tool religiously for hardcore research and note-taking. But you can breathe a sigh of relief. The core mission, and more importantly, all of your existing work remains completely intact. You literally haven't lost a byte of data, and the foundation of the product hasn't vanished into thin air. Which brings us to the elephant in the room, and probably the biggest question you're asking yourself right now, especially if you've already poured countless hours into your research, uploaded dozens of PDFs, and mapped out all these complex ideas. Do you actually have to change the way you work today? To answer that, in this explainer, we'll be covering four main things. First, a change in name only. Second, what actually changes? Third, the productivity trap. And fourth, the source before sentence rule. Okay, starting with Section 1, a change in name only. As co-creator Stephen Johnson pointed out, that LM suffix, it was always meant to be temporary. It was actually just a naming convention borrowed from Google Labs, kind of like their other experiment, MusicLM, to really just capture this idea of a notebook reimagined for language models. The plan was always that if the product proved itself, they'd drop the LM. And while after nearly 3 years and close to a staggering 1 billion notebooks created, the tool is really just catching up to its own phenomenal success. So here is the absolute best news: your sources, your meticulously organized notebooks, and the specific way you talk to your documents. None of that has changed one bit. You don't have to migrate a single file or relearn some complicated new interface just to get back to where you were yesterday. Moving right along to Section 2, what actually changes? Now, beyond the shiny new Gemini Notebook name, and yes, thankfully that old access link still works like a charm, you are getting a much deeper integration into the Google ecosystem. We're talking seamless syncing, which means your notebooks can now be created and accessed directly inside the main Gemini app. But the real heavyweight addition here, the absolute game changer, is a brand new capacity. Every notebook now gets its own secure cloud computer that can write and execute code right over your sources. So what's the big deal with this code execution? Well, it's rolling out to AI Ultra and business customers first, and it unlocks incredibly deep data analysis. Basically, it lets the AI handle complex math, evaluate giant tables, and verify numerical claims against hard data. If you've used language models much, you know they historically and honestly somewhat comically struggle with basic counting. So this is a massive, massive upgrade for fact-checking. Which brings us to Section 3. The productivity trap. Because Gemini Notebook is now living right there inside your broader Google ecosystem, living so close to everything else you do, there is a very real temptation to let the tool just do absolutely everything. You're going from having this isolated, walled-off tool where you strictly do research to a unified space where it becomes incredibly easy to just give in to human nature. The temptation to let the AI do your homework for you, including writing the actual draft, is huge. And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates the central conflict of this whole update. On one side, you have this incredible opportunity. You can leverage that new code execution to reliably verify your data like never before. But on the exact opposite side is the trap, handing over your actual writing process simply because the tool is now fully capable of doing it, and it's right there staring at you. You absolutely must leverage the opportunity of verifying facts while fiercely avoiding the trap of skipping the blank page. And that leads perfectly into Section 4, source before sentence. To navigate all this, author Mihailo Zoin lays out a really brilliant strategy to ensure that you use this software change instead of being used by it. He strongly advocates for setting strict workflow boundaries. You have to make sure the AI remains an instrument for your thoughts and doesn't quietly morph into the author of them. He breaks it down into 3 incredibly practical steps. First up, don't rush. Features like code execution roll out gradually, so check what's actually live in your account before you go changing all your habits. Second, when you do finally get that code execution, use it strictly for the things language models can't naturally do, like counting or cross-referencing tables, not for generating your text. And third, sync intentionally. Keep the notebook where you do your research completely mentally and physically separate from the place where you write. You really don't want those two phases accidentally blurring into one. But honestly, the most crucial piece of advice here outshines all the rest. He says, the tool is still an instrument before the first sentence and after it, never during it. Use Gemini Notebook to flawlessly map out your evidence before you start typing, or use it to ruthlessly attack and critique your draft after you've written it. But you've got to hold the line and never let it write the draft for you. And that right there is the core philosophy of this whole explainer: source before sentence. It's a golden rule that the new Gemini Notebook name doesn't change one bit. In fact, precisely because the tool is now so much more powerful and so deeply embedded in your daily workflow, this boundary is far more vital to protect. You have to ensure it stays a research instrument. You know, a software update like this is actually a pretty rare gift. It's this brief little window of interruption that lets us consciously re-examine our routines before they harden up again. So, I'll leave you with this question to chew on. As these tools grow inevitably more powerful and deeply integrated, are you still holding the line on your own creativity? Does your workflow still serve you? Or have you started serving the tool?